immediately like we did last time.
I'm going to turn out the fluorescent lights.
Why does it say BIFPOD is offline? BIFPOD should not be offline. I told you to start streaming. BIFPOD is offline. Why is BIFPOD offline? I told you to stream. Why are you not streaming? There we go. I told you to stream. Why are you not streaming?
Yeah, you want to be on a podcast? All right.
Stream. Why are you not streaming?
Oh, good.
You want to be
Okay.
on a podcast?
That door is firmly shut. Otherwise, Fred's probably going to barge in at some point.
It's a little less destructive when they come in.
That door is firmly shut. Otherwise, Fred's probably going to barge in at some point.
Okay. The echoing problem we had last time is not happening.
I got a headset on. I was the one that wrecked it last time.
Oh, okay. No, the problem is that each of you are a feed coming into my computer, and if I leave all of those feeds live, we get all of that audio and OBS recording and that audio as well. So that's why we had everybody echoing at the beginning last time. But audio is great, evidently. All right. Well, we are just getting set up, everybody. I have a few special things to talk about at the top here. I went back and forth last night on whether we mentioned the fact that the world is on fire or ignore that the world's on fire.
I think we ignore it.
I think we ignore that the world's on fire. It's a little weird because there's no minorities in 40K for the most part. It's very, very small. So we're a bunch of white guys talking about a hobby at a time where a bunch of white guys should be sympathetic. So that's why I thought about it. Anywho, I agree. I don't think we should talk about it. Okay, so I have a little bit of an agenda. Nothing we need to go through before we get started. Basically, it sounds like Alex is going to say, here's a change we know is happening in 9th. Then I'll narrate through us each talking about it. If it's something very specific to one of you, I'll probably call on you first. And that's... No, we do not need to address the skin dog issue. That's not a thing. That was where the Discord started talking, and I thought, oh no, this is not good.
You're literally reading the comments. Don't.
Well, no, we're going to read the comments. That's the point of doing it live. If we don't read the comments, there's no point in being live. All right. Somebody has a lot of noise. Is that me?
I blame Danny.
Probably. That's fair.
It sounds like somebody's desk is creaking, or they're playing with their microphone, or... Oh, we're on Alex's phone. That's probably what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Let's let Alex come back, and then we'll get rolling.
Okay.
Well, we can't see you anymore. Alright, so... Who do we think that noise is coming from before we get started here?
Well, I'll mute mine for a second. Did that make it go away? Nope.
I'm confused now. Okay, well, it's gone, so whatever. Okay, so... let's just do this the easier way. Welcome to Best in Faction, a competitive Warhammer 40k podcast. I'm Colin.
I'm Mitch.
I'm Chuck.
And we also have Danny and Alex with us today. So, yeah, sorry, very sorry. It's been like 5 weeks since we've recorded. That is not okay. I'm hoping that my hair tells you guys a story of what my life has been like. This is my I don't need a haircut, it's not socially responsible to do so haircut. It is getting longer and longer. It is throwing more and more and more. You can see it's very luscious. See, look at all the curls. Yeah, so I actually, in addition to the fact that I can't, no, we're not, Chuck and Mitch and I aren't playing 40k right now. In addition to that, I moved my whole family to a substantially different lifestyle. Much more land, much farther from the city, about 3 weeks ago now. And that's had me so distracted that I actually haven't even been able to keep up with the 9th edition stuff for the most part. However, I am deeply excited for it. So I apologize that we didn't pull together and record before now, especially as the 9th edition rules are now being announced to coming out. We'll go back to recording every 2 weeks. That'll happen. Also, just so everybody's aware, I have a plan over the next couple weeks to get the studio set up here at the new house. And the idea there is to, at the worst case scenario, start streaming the day we have 9th edition rolls. Best case scenario, we'll start streaming early with whatever we know. But for sure, we will stream when it comes out. Chuck and I have talked about having a long, kind of a weekend of 40K when we have 9th edition rolls. With however many people is socially responsible to be over. If it's just Chuck and I, it's just Chuck and I. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay.
And I'll be making my return to playing competitive Warhammer 40K with 9th. I feel like there's no point in trying to play before then, since I've missed half the edition anyway.
Right. So that will be great too. I haven't played a 40K game against Mitch in 9 months, maybe.
It's probably been a year.
We played a practice game where you were trying to shoot my Dark Reapers with your stupid Grey Knights that can see through walls. And so the whole game was me streaming massive distances to stop that from happening. That was the whole. Yep. That was the entire game. So, anywho, okay. So what we're gonna do now is we're going to do this. Hey Chuck, Happy Father's Day.
Hey, thank you.
Danny, Happy Father's Day to you too.
Thanks.
Yeah. So there you go. It's Father's Day. When we decided to record this, I didn't actually remember that it was Father's Day, but hey, it's Father's Day, so call your dad. He cares. Call your stepdad as well. As a stepdad, I have special feelings for that, so call your stepdad as well.
Especially when you have as much stepdadding as you do.
Yeah. Your stepdad doesn't have the same biological requirement to keep you safe that biological dad does, and still doesn't kill you, and that is important. So you have to remember that. I'm thrilled to be a stepdad. It's incredibly fun. Our stepdad plans for today are that my kids have not seen every Star Wars movie. They have only seen some of them, and I don't think that that's the correct number of Star Wars movies for them to have seen. So we're gonna go in release order, and we're starting today. So we'll probably do a couple. We'll do New Hope and Empire Strikes Back today, and then we'll roll from there. I don't think the two younger kids are going to make it through A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, but that's okay. We're going to try. So, any other dad plans before we talk about 40K? You don't get to see your son today, Chuck. You told me that. So nope. No Father's Day for Chuck. Danny?
Well, it's his 6-month anniversary with his girlfriend, so, I got trumped.
Okay. I don't think that's a phrase anymore.
That's probably true.
Priorities.
Or maybe it is, and it's way worse than I interpreted it.
Yeah. And Danny, you have kids, right?
Just Fred.
Oh, you only have Fred?
So,
I give you Happy Father's Day for Fred then. Fred requires as much attention. Enough. Yeah, he requires.
I usually get a card.
Okay. Well, I don't feel as weird then.
I'm having lunch.
For some reason, I thought you had kids. Are you having lunch with your parents, bitch? Is that what you said? Good.
Yep. We're at their boat. They live on a yacht, and so we're just doing it right there since we don't want to go out and be in public. So
yeah, right.
Yeah,
that's good.
Owning a boat right now is great.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, we moved to a house with a swimming pool, and that's made social distancing a lot easier because we don't want to leave. We just want to be in the swimming pool every day. So we've actually had to come up with rules like, well, we can't swim every day because there's actually other things that we have to accomplish. So
seems like a dumb rule.
Yeah, right.
Don't worry, night's coming. It'll fix it.
Yeah, right. There was discussion about, because the area around the pool is spacious, there was questions about, if I ran a tournament here, do we put 40K tables around the pool, or is that destined for failure? That's an actual conversation some of us had.
I clearly made it that the way that the seedings for the hardest 40K RTT for next year has to be determined by jousting in the pool. Like, that's how it has to be done. Like,
I think we would get
motorized float toys. It's going to be a great time.
I think we would get phenomenal amounts of internet attention if Danny and the Falcon jousted in the pool at the start of Charity Hammer.
Mm-hmm. Are we doing like chicken fights?
What's that?
Are we doing chicken fights? Like 2 people in the pool and 2 people on their shoulders?
Well,
That works
now it's Danny with Falcon on his shoulders. Is now what I've got in my head? It's now what I've got.
It's like a
the other way
turducken,
around.
but with a falcon and an eagle.
I'll throw a Sigler at you.
Yeah.
It'll be me on Peter's shoulders, actually. 'cause,
Oh,
you know.
no, that's not. I don't know where the
Miss
hospital.
Peter greatly.
Danny, I just moved here. I don't know where the hospital
It's
is.
been real.
I call Mark Perry.
I don't know where the hospital
there
is,
you go.
Danny.
I'm grabbing John Lennon. I think John Lennon on my shoulders is a winning combo.
Alex, any Canadians you want on your shoulders? Should we have the Canadian team in this? Who's the smallest and most vicious Canadian? That's the question.
Vessel?
No, it's gonna be Alex. It's gonna be Alex on JT. That's gotta be the combo.
That's a pretty
yeah.
good combo.
That's solid. That's a
We'll
solid
get
base.
him some robo knees.
You
and then he'll
guys,
be ready
you
to
guys,
go.
yeah, you guys do understand how often JT is injured, right? you do know that, like how
He
often
knows how to roll with it.
right. So, for those, the question we're getting by far the most of right now is Charity Hammer going to happen? And Charity Hammer will happen with however many people it is responsible to have. So, see, everybody's windows are changing sizes because I didn't set the settings correctly. Tyler's going to be really mad at me. So, I'm going to go fix that. And, Mitch has 2 windows now, too. This is going great.
Oh. I mean, 2 Mitch. It's not a
Well,
bad thing.
I don't actually think I care that Mitch has 2 windows. I might just leave that. We'll have 2 Mitch. So, if it's okay to have 4 people over, Charity Hammer will be 1 stream table and 4 people. If I can have 10 people, Charity Hammer will be 2 tables with 10 people. It'll just be whatever.
I think
whatever
the
we
smaller
can do.
the number, the zanier the challenges will be.
Well, if it's only 4 of us, there's not going to be a lot of sleeping. So that'll be
Yeah, it's going to be zany no matter what.
yeah.
That's
It'll
true.
be 3 people on, 1 person sleeping is not really a great recipe for rest.
My Wolfen charged the building because they want to go to sleep. They sleep in the building. What? My Wolfen sleep in the building. That's what's happening.
Someone asked.
Is that an action?
There's a question. Can we
Yes.
hear Alex? Let's make sure we can hear Alex. Alex, say hello.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Perfect.
we can.
He's
Can
just a quiet Canadian.
I've already talked about how much I like the online name Ill-Gotten Cranes, so we're not going to have a conversation about that again. But I do still love it.
That is one of the best Frasier episode names by far.
I very much feel like that person stole some cranes, and that makes me happy. Now, I'm thinking lifting cranes, not the birds, because the birds are probably like geese, which we know are jerks. Okay, so yes, Charity Hammer will happen. I just don't know to what extent what will be Charity Hammer will happen. But we will do it, and it will be great. And hopefully, it'll be right before an LVO that we're all allowed to go to. Right? That's the hope.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did buy my my early ticket for LVO, presuming that it was happening. I felt like that was like it's kind of like when you put an umbrella in the car to make sure it's not going to rain. I'm kind of planning, Oh no, that'd be not buying the ticket. I have it backwards now. I should have not bought the ticket. I had that
I'm sure
backwards.
Frontline appreciates it.
Right? Okay, so we're going to talk about 9th edition. All of the rules are not out. I can tell you that this group, I don't believe anybody here has insider information. Just putting that out there. You know what? I think we should let Danny tell everybody about his podcast and where he's from, because Danny's only been on once before, and it was a long time ago. So
a lot of other people.
Yeah.
So as you can tell by my amazing mobware here, I'm on the Mob Rules podcast. We do codex reviews and just generally have a lot of fun with 40K. We come out every 2 weeks like clockwork, even during quarantine.
I feel personally
Danny.
attacked. Yeah.
That seemed
what
like
the hell,
a dick.
man? We give you a platform and just right off the bat.
You should really listen to our show because we're reliable and better than BIFPOD. Oh, yeah. Okay,
Well,
thanks, Danny.
They're reliable.
We're reliable at sucking. We just did
that is true. They are consistent. So.
Yeah, we are consistent. At least we're the same quality, like all the way through, even keel. We just did a War of the Spider review yesterday, so that should be coming out today probably. And we just watched the Ultramarines movie, drinking White Claw and doing like a riff track on it.
I actually cannot wait for that.
There's an Ultramarines movie?
Oh no! Don't
That's
watch it.
the correct response. And that's a previous life that you lived. Everything before knowing that this movie existed. Now that you know it exists, your life is inevitably worse. It does not matter that you haven't seen it yet. It's
every
bad.
30 minutes, we took a break and watched the new 40K trailer as a palate cleanser.
Oh, so it's not quality then, is what you're saying?
Oh, it's so bad.
Yeah, it's real bad. It has John Hurt.
Okay then. Yeah. So Danny also was at Charity Hammer.
Yes.
And,
man, what a good time.
And had a great time. It played some weird beard touching games with the Falcon.
It was good.
Yeah, there was a lot. So and then Alex, you've been doing a lot with Art of War lately.
Yeah, I've been writing and doing clinics and stuff. Been enjoying it quite a bit.
Yeah.
I like to be able to have a platform to actually write. I enjoy writing, so it's nice to actually have like a reason to write.
Your articles are so good, Alex. I really like you come out with a really positive tone, and they're really well written. Really, really appreciated, man.
Thank you.
I wondered how much he has to work on the positive tone, because as someone who talks Tyranids with Alex on the regular, I'm not used to that level of positivity from Alex.
Yeah, that's why I write about sportsmanship all the time. It's easy for me to be happy about sportsmanship.
Alex,
It's like Tyranids
you play
this
a lot
long.
of
He has to have
Tyranids, yet you
sportsmanship.
write about everything else. Why is that? Well, I like to write about positive things.
Yeah. Although I might complain about Tyranids power level all the time, but that doesn't stop me from buying the garbage. That's right. Tyrant guard, baby.
But
Oh yeah.
But Alex's frustration with Genestealer Colt and okay. Alex's frustration with Genestealer Colt and Tyranids is the reason why we all have Ridge Runners, though. So, because I was like, "Shut up, Alex! I'll find something for you, damn it!" It was kind of my response. I'm still taking.
I have also done that to people.
Yeah, and now lots of people.
It was
have Ridge
usually
Runners.
Dark Angels players. So for a long time it was like, no, they suck. And I'm like, okay, here's 3 Talon Masters, and Sammy, just do that. Just stop.
Right. Okay, so we're
It's
talking
good.
about,
It's not great.
we're going to talk about 9th edition, and here's how we're going to do it. Alex is going to tell us a thing about 9th edition that some of us will already know about and others will not, and then we will all discuss it. That's what's going to happen. So, Alex, what's the first thing we should talk about 9th edition?
The first thing we should talk about is the very important final thing that GW has said, that there is an online app coming. And thank the Lord.
Okay, let's quickly go around. Who thinks there's an online app actually coming? Mitch.
Absolutely. I think that when it comes out, we'll entirely have to do with how much time have they had to work on this app since the licensing agreement lapsed with the previous company.
Yeah, with the previous time they told us we'd have an app.
Yeah, we know that they had a company before. That app didn't make it out of testing. How long have they had since then to work on the new app, and how many times has it been reworked based on feedback, just in general? Because there's certainly an iterative process for this. So hopefully they're not going to come out with it until it's right, because coming out with an app and it not being good, especially if it has any sort of monetary cost, is really just not a. They do not want to do that. That is a really, really bad idea, especially if it looks like it's been rushed to match the launch of 9th. It's better for them to come out with something that works and is reliable and becomes the standard very quickly, as opposed to is viewed as unreliable and not great, and then a lot of other apps have to continue to exist in a way that isn't great. I hope that they secretly have already acquired part of Battlescribe's team, and they've already been working those deals, and we haven't heard the NDAs on that, because they have a lot of that structure already there, and there's a lot of familiarity. And if we can just get that that back end with a Games Workshop official front end and the funding basically to take all of what those teams have been doing basically voluntarily or for not a lot of money and kind of professionalize it. That's a great thing.
Well, I think one of the problems that they have, and it's a big problem, is that their community is particularly unaccepting of bad software, right? Of all the communities, there's so much software nerd in the 40K world that anything that isn't up to the absolute best quality gets lambasted.
I think what we'll see is that they've taken the app and split it into sections, and there'll be a release almost immediately with 9th edition.
Right.
But it will only be the core things that they think are most important to the game, and then they will add to it as we go. Like, that's how you develop an app. That's how you expand this kind of tool, and I don't think they're going to screw that up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so, like, right now, the Age of Sigmar app is pretty decent. Like, they did a pretty good job with that application. And they have, I'm sure you'll be able to buy codexes and rules through the application instead of through, like, Apple Store or, the Google Play Store or whatever, however you've been getting your content, your digital content from them previously. So I think that stuff will be available on their application along with, like, the facts, because they already have all the framework for that done with the Age of Sigmar app already. But the army builder part of it is probably, I don't know if that's going to be out, like, right on release. I'd be surprised. And if it did come out, hopefully it's up to snuff, because that's the most complicated part of the application for sure.
Right.
Something else, I would. So Danny makes a great point that they do have some experience now with the Age of Sigmar app that has been out for a while. Something I'd really like to see them have, not necessarily initially at launch, but long term, is a tournament, a TO basically subscription for the app. So basically, while I'm running a tournament only, I have access to every single codex, every single rule book, like everything, just so I can answer rules questions. And then when that tournament closes, that I don't necessarily have to have all the access to that, but making that a smaller cost for TOs to be able to have access to all of the rules, just for a subscription price, would be a really great feature so that TOs don't feel like they have to buy every single codex every time something comes out.
Right. Okay. What's the next thing, Alex?
You got really quiet there, Colin.
Oh.
The next thing is that they're going to have a consolidation of FAQs. I know that kind of goes in hand with the app, but some people that I've been talking to said that there's a 177-page FAQ that's every consolidation of everything we know and everything from transitioning from 8th to 9th. And if they can put that together, that's reassuring as far as I'm concerned.
I bet that they think that the number of pages is a bonus. Guys, guess what? It's a lot of pages. It's really great. And I'm thinking, man, I have a hard time finding rules in 4-page FAQs.
The app had better be searchable. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it needs a Google search. Type in keyword info.
Yep.
Absolutely.
That'd be great.
Well, so I'm being a little bit cynical, and I should say that my belief is everything should be digital. I want all of the books to be digital. I want them updated digitally. I want all the rules digital. I want all the army lists. I want everything to be digital. I don't need a book from them ever again. So I'm being cynical only because I've wanted an app since they promised me one at the beginning of 8th.
I don't think we're gonna see that, unfortunately, just because the books are profitable.
Yep.
So they're gonna, the only way I think we're gonna see them wean themselves off books is if they see that the app is profitable in the same kind of way or or even more so, which I do think is actually possible if they can put together an attractive enough package. They can put together something that demands $10, $15, $20 a month subscriptions. If that's the only thing I need to play any army in the game, yeah, I'll gladly pay that. That works out to like 3 codexes a year. I mean, I feel like I'm buying that anyway. So that's an easy amount of or an easy example of consistent revenue all of a sudden that has no real physical overhead in the same way that the printing does.
Well,
it also just gives them a lot more control of balance.
Unfortunately, it has to be a lot more than $20 a month because there's lots of people that buy every book. And they're not going to give up the revenue stream of the people who buy every book. An important note here is that there is no comparison to how profitable books are compared to digital codexes. Like a digital codex is going to be phenomenally more profitable than a physical book, and eventually they'll move that way because that'll make sense for them. They, like everything else is going that way. Anyhow.
Yeah, no, they just have to get there. They have to realize it.
There's a comment that $20 a month is much too high for every rule and every book that comes out. I don't see that. I think that
you're getting access to everything. Like, you want to research a list that you're struggling with, you have access to that. You don't need to go borrow someone's books. You can just immediately go and look at exactly what's going on.
Right.
Depends. I know a lot of players who have their army and their book, and their expenditure per year is, maybe $100 for the whole year, and that includes models and growth. So, like, we're playing at a level where, like, we're looking at this as almost a cost-saving device. There are a lot of players in the world who see it as a completely different thing. So, I don't know business-wise I don't know what their scale looks like.
I'm not suggesting that there's only one tier. I'm saying that the app can be free and you can just buy your one codex. Or if you want access to everything all the time, you can pay a subscription as an alternative way that you're basically, you don't own any of them. So if you stop paying, you lose access to all those rules. So it's a different value proposition.
Well, and the point of these subscription services, a big part of these subscription services is the person who buys one book every 3 months is now buying a book every month, and because of the subscription fee, and they're going to forget that they're paying it. Unfortunately, that's the big advantage of these. They're going to stop caring that they're paying it, and you end up with this. Like, I work for a SaaS software company. This is not a new concept, right? Sure. Monthly fees are simply better than physical one-time purchases. The entire economy wants to go that way.
So I think eventually they'll be able to work up to that. Right now, like, I feel like, you'll be able to use the app, you'll be able to get FAQs and stuff like that on it for free. Right now they have Azir costs $1 a month or $2 a month to access the army builder portion of it. Granted, Age of Sigmar rules are free, so like them giving you access to like that consolidated like rule set all in one place is worth a couple bucks a month. And then you can buy books through the application, and then that unlocks parts of the army builder that you can't normally see rules for and things like that if you have purchased the book within the program. So I feel like that's probably going to be close to the model that they go to. I hope that they go to a full subscription service for all the rules all the time. I think that would be a really good move on their part. But we'll see how long it takes to actually implement that.
Right. Do you think that... never mind. I'm not going to ask that. Hey, Danny, before we go any further, can you try either reconnecting or disconnecting and reconnecting your mic? You've got...
Sure.
Your audio's awful.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's really bad. Alex's is also sometimes problematic, but Alex is literally on his phone, so we have to give him a little bit of forgiveness.
I'm right next to the wireless. That's all I can do.
All right. Okay. So, what's next, Alex?
Okay, we'll actually start getting into rules now. Okay. So there is a new phase coming to the game, which is the command phase. Okay. They've said that at that time you'll get to use specific command phase stratagems and something called tactical abilities, which they didn't really go into. So that might be something else that commanders are getting, or maybe that's when you hand out like aura buffs or something like that.
Do we think it's like the start? Sorry.
That will also be when you regenerate command points.
Okay. So, do we think this is the start of the turn phase? Because there's a lot of stuff at the start of the turn right now.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
they showed a chart.
Oh, okay.
So you start your turn out in the command phase, which is just a nice thing in general to help separate all of that, like, start of the movement phase crap. It's now like, do this here.
Didn't Magic the Gathering go through? I haven't played Magic.
You're muted, Mitch.
I'm really hoping that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Colin.
That's all right. You came off mute, so naturally you're going to talk over whoever's talking. I was just going to ask, for those that have been playing Magic the Gathering a really long time, didn't they kind of go through a similar thing where it was like all of the stuff was described as like interrupting and start of the turn, and then they ended up actually making everything very discrete phases? It seems like just a maturity thing that kind of has to happen.
Yeah, at some point, a game that's going on this long kind of realizes that it's valuable to have a more specific timing so that you could resolve, higher end players' questions with the assurance instead of just being like, who can yell at who the longest.
Well, it's also, I'm really hoping it resolves any of the happening in between turns things of stratagems being able to be used multiple times. That's always felt kind of like a loophole that they sometimes, like one rules designer intended it that way, but then other rules designers didn't realize that was the case and created rules that, that you didn't necessarily want being used, an unlimited number of times based on your CP. So that was always just a really messy thing with 8th. So creating a phase that can consolidate all that down is going to, I hope, fix a lot of things.
Yeah,
it'll also probably remind people to use litanies, use the admech.
Yeah.
No, no, they're not going to remember to use litanies, Alex. That's just how basic players are. They're just.
I'm really interested to see if orders change. To the command phase for Imperial Guard. That would be a very big change, because having it in the shooting phase has always been really nice. But I could see that all of a sudden becoming in the command phase, because it seems like something that would be in the command phase.
Yeah.
So
one of the armies that's getting released right now, like right at the start of this, is Necrons, and they have a ton of start of turn stuff. So it's good to see them consolidating that into one phase as well.
Yeah.
Holy crap, do Necrons look good.
I'm going to share something. Yeah. I'm going to share something not 40K now, because the office that we built for me is also our guest room, and this is the first time I believe that Gus has discovered that there's a bed in the office with me, and I'm just gonna turn this around for just a second, and we're just gonna notice the Gus, who's completely passed out while we're podcasting, just completely crashed. I'm super amused by that side to share it. But I think the deliberate phases and rulings. Oh, I broke the camera. Good job, me.
You for touching stuff.
There it goes. I think that to having distinct phases is just a logical change. Mm-hmm. The rule that I actually don't like today, that I'm hoping will get clarified, is if it's Alex's turn and we both have a rule that happens at the same time, Alex picks what order those things happen in. That sounds good on paper, but every time that's come up in a game, it's been confusing. Like, every time it's come up, it's like, how does this exactly work? So there's these two things. I guess Alex decides which. Okay, like, that's a weird thing. So hopefully that's part of this as well.
It is a common question. Can confirm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are being asked what has happened to the weekly stream game? Well, I can't have people over to my house, so yeah. So
and let's be honest, Colin playing his kids would get very one-sided very quickly.
I played a bunch of 50 power level with my kids when I first got into 40K, and they really liked it. And then I wanted to play full games, and they did not. So, and then yes, Colin does need a haircut, but again, I think Monday is when the hair places where I live open. So this is actually what happens when Colin doesn't have a haircut from early January until now. That's what this is. Okay, so. But to fill in those questions about streaming, the intention, at a bare minimum, Chuck and I are going to stream with 9th edition rules as soon as we have them. At a bare minimum, we're hoping that Alex can find a way through the closed border. We're hoping that Alex can come down sneakily through the border. It's now extended till July 29th, Alex. So depending on the release date for 9th, that might kill our plans.
Well, what's funny is he can fly here, no problem.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Just doesn't want to live here.
Yeah.
No, I know. It's just you can fly but you can't drive.
Yeah. You've got to contact a coyote, man. He'll get you through.
But Colin is now actually much closer to me. He's so I'll be able to get in games as well. So we'll be able to get stuff going.
The thing is, depending on how many players I find up here, the weekly stream might just have to be on the weekend. Because a bunch of the people I play against are far enough away that a weeknight in rush hour traffic is not going to be realistic. But I am near the Bellingham folks, and some of them have been on the stream before, and I'm really close to them now. So, Noah, who was on the stream with me, I'm really close to him. JT and his brother, what's their last name, Chuck? Steiger? Steiger?
Stigler? I don't remember.
Steiger, yeah, they do a stream out of Bellingham. Anywho, percentage chance they announced 9th edition and Indomitus in about a half an hour. What's happening in half an hour? Something? Okay. All right.
I don't know.
Next rule, Alex. So far, everybody is...
next one.
Alex is painting. This is great.
You betcha.
Yeah, that's what
okay,
you should
so
be doing.
Is that a Hardy
we're
thing?
still going to have a 2K limit for points, typically, but 2K is going to feel more like about 1,700-ish. And at 2K points limit, we are having 12 command points for everyone. There are universal command points.
Okay.
I think everyone is excited about this, I hope. It's a
Orc
really
players
cool
are
thing.
not, but we accept.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Which part of having less models on the table is sad for our players?
Yes, the fact that they took the 90 Gretchen away and I don't have to look at them anymore is great. But I could easily have 24 in a game. Definitely, I'm one of the few factions I think that's like, oh, that's a big drop.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Well,
remembering that we will be regenerating a command point a turn, so that's actually about 18.
Yeah.
I actually really like that because it means that a little bit less of that front-loaded, like blow all your command points now, and that there'll be command points towards the end of the game. Is a pretty. I think it's a good way of balancing some of that out.
I think it allows games to swing more.
Okay.
Just because there's chances of like all of a sudden it's like there's always been an element in 8th of okay, I've run my opponent out of CP, right?
Mhm.
But with it returning, all of a sudden when you're playing that Space Wolf player and it's been a couple turns, if you forget that he has 2 CP again, he can intercept the whatever I'm redeploying. That can really swing a game so it's creating a different type of not necessarily. I mean, it is somewhat bookkeeping, but it's making command points be relevant the entire game.
I like your super relevant example, Mitch, of all those times I've played a Space Wolf player at tournaments.
I am
With
going to
their,
be playing
their heavy
again.
weapon on infantry, which is definitely going to be
I
a
am going to
thing.
be playing again, and you will. So there will be a Space Wolf player at every tournament.
Okay. All right. I was just poor Space Wolves. I'm wondering as they redo everything, do you think that they will get rid of a bunch of the recuperate command point things because everybody's standardized now? So some people having them and other people not is not really great. What do we think?
No, I think they're going to keep them just because it's in too many different spots.
Also, they're publishing in Psychic Awakening right now. If they were going to get rid of them, I don't think they'd be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
They have 2 new ones in War of the Spider. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
as
think
long as you once a turn, that's fine.
I actually really like everybody having the same number because I thought some armies were unfairly harshed. Like, if you look at the Necron CP in their current codex, some of the stuff is just expensive, and they're a very hard army to get CP currently in the game. And then you compare that to Genestealer Cult, where when Alex and I were first making armies when they first came out, Alex, we had like 25, 30 CP in some of those lists.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
And
they're
the
easy to-
Custodes players and Grey Knights players also got really excited.
yeah.
I think
Tau-
all those groups
Tau.
like that, like the Necrons, the Custodes and stuff, they're going to have to go back and actually look at all their strats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had core strats used all the time, and they just actually haven't looked at the other ones.
Well,
Right.
and like Space Wolves just got something that I think we're going to be seeing more of in 9th, which is a 0 CP cost strat that gives you a CP every
Yeah.
time you kill a character in close combat.
Mhm.
Like that means that you have 6 turns. So that's 6 more CP plus 12. Like plus if you can do that 3 or 4 turns, you're talking about 21, 22 CP in a faction that loves and is very CP hungry and does not want a lot of troops. That completely transforms how that faction plays. And we're not going to really see how that's going to shake out in the meta for a good while, just because the whole it's a complete shift in the dynamic and meta of the game, that we're no longer we're moving away from a troop centric game, and we're going to see more MSU, and elite units are going to be more valuable because there's fewer models on the table in general. So those units that can stick around and delete 2 units before they go away become more valuable for exchanges. It's going to be really interesting. I think Chaos looks a lot better for 9th for sure.
Depth guard's looking disgusting.
Don't get Chuck
Oh,
to it.
those
Guys, hold on. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to get Chuck all excited. He's going to bring chaos list after chaos list over, and he's going to get frustrated, and then he's going to go back to orcs. So let's just calm it down.
I'm just going to skip straight to Mega Knobs and call it good.
Okay. I was just going to say, what's interesting is, like, as an Eldar player, which I'll say knowing that means 30% of the podcast is now like, God damn it. But as an Eldar player, I will say that I don't see, all the other rules will change things, but if you just gave me that, I would never take anything that's not a vehicle ever. Right? Ever.
Yeah.
And
we have to have HQs.
Well, okay, fine, but they can also they can ride bikes. Like,
yeah.
Okay, like, I guess vehicle's the wrong word. I'm not going to take anything on foot. Is really what I mean. Yeah.
But it means the Rangers are gone.
Which is weird because Rangers are actually amazing for their points. But
well, and it depends how what the new missions are too. Like, so, like whether troops, like having infantry models is actually going to be valuable to like do actions and things like that, depending on how the wording on all of that breaks out. And so, I mean, some armies obviously don't have the option to not take like infantry models, or at least some. So it'll be interesting to see how armies that have historically been very infantry heavy, like how that all changes and whether or not they fall out of favor because they're not able to compete in the new meta that is very troop-light.
Yep. Anything else you want to say about that one? I think that's kind of an important one.
Nope.
Okay. What's next, Alex?
I mean, we've got all these changes to Deep Strike that are coming out. And I think we're still going to need troops to keep that in check. But it might be that troops are solving a bit of a different role than they used to. I don't think they're going away. I think their function will change.
Right.
I think. Oh, go ahead.
I don't think your troops will go away. I think, like, when I'm looking at all the changes overall and trying to think it through, I'm like, I'll have like 3 squads of 10 grots, because you still want some kind of chaff that's cheap and easy to let go. But I'm not looking at I'm going to have 120 boys, right? And I think that's what they're actually trying to curtail a bit of.
I am in favor of less models in the game. I am in favor of games going faster. That's all good. Like, you don't need to have... I actually think it's ridiculous to have 200 models on the table. I think that's ridiculous. There's no way anyone who doesn't play the game is going to look at that and say, oh, I bet this game plays quickly. Right? There's no one that's going to walk past that table and think, yeah, I bet they'll be done. I bet this game's done in time all the time. Like, it just... I'm all for the game speeding up. If it means we can't have as many models, then we can't have as many models. And
so I think, the army that is going to be changed the most by 8th to 9th is Guard. Guard have always struggled with, I need tons of models because no one can touch my tanks ever. If someone touches my tanks, I lose. That dynamic's completely changing. Lehman Russ's become something entirely different. Vehicle-heavy armies in general for Guard become super interesting and scary just because of blast rules and horde and all kinds of stuff. So they're like, we're going to see infantry light vehicle heavy armies in Guard where we've never seen that really, outside of maybe super heavy lists recently.
Well, I've played a number of tournament games against 9 Lehman Russes.
Oh no, it exists. It's just not been very good.
It's a much better list now, but we're way off of what it's like to have 12 command points in every army.
Yeah.
What's next, Alex?
Next, looks like I'm like 99% sure this is how they worded it. They didn't really say it exactly, but it looks like everyone's going to have race-specific secondaries. So each army is actually going to have a different ability to score points in the missions. All of these that I've seen have shown that there are end game and progressive missions, and just the fact that we have brand new missions. And it looks like ITC will be adopting the book missions over their old ITC stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. I think they did a good job of it. With the Maelstrom decks, I know people didn't really like them, but with the modifications they've been making, the Maelstrom decks have gotten much better. And one of the pieces of that is having Maelstrom cards for your specific army, which, of course, always had some juicy super card in it for you, which you used all the time. But the rest of them were also made the game just feel a little bit more like you're telling that overall story. So there's a lot of room for positive there.
I don't know if the new missions use the cards. I don't think.
I'm not suggesting it's the Maelstrom itself. I'm just saying when they added the race cards to the Maelstrom deck.
Oh, okay.
It added an element that I thought was good, and it sounds like this is basically just taking that one element and adding it as well. So it has a lot of room for positive.
I don't think they're getting rid of Maelstrom though.
mission types. They just didn't like the randomness of it.
Yeah,
Like, there's enough RNG in the game already. I don't want to have a game lost because I just drew a bunch of crappy cards.
Yeah, and if you play some of the new ones where you edit your deck down to like 18 cards and have more ability to cycle, that goes away.
ETC
because
missions are amazing.
yeah, the having to improvise because you don't know exactly how every game's going to go and in what order really opens up a lot of army building. You see, particularly with the ITC missions, are so well understood. People are like, this is my mid-game, early game, late game choices. Like, they've got it sort of all prefigured. Things like that where they come up in different orders, makes people adapt a little more, which I think is pretty great.
I also think it... Oh, go ahead, Alex.
Did the ITC missions ever really play that differently?
No.
Like, missions 1 to 6, I played almost all of them the exact same, other than maybe the 3 objective mission.
I mean, mission 1 to 6 for the last 3 iterations. Yeah, none of them really played very differently, but they played very well, right? Like, they had really good ideas. I really enjoyed them, but yeah, they got stale after a while. I always was really excited when they said they were going to do new missions because I was like, oh boy, now we have something coming.
Well, so the other nice thing about customizing objectives to armies allows you to take options off the table if it's too powerful for one army, but allow it to still exist if it improves the feel of play for another army, which is a really important thing for them to have. Because if you just make it general, it makes it much harder to balance with all these different factions. So faction-specific objectives, I think, are really handy for making armies play like you want them to play, like feel right. Like, I want Dark Eldar to feel like they're raiding. I want Space Wolves to feel like they are just overwhelming you and just running at you and tearing through you. Like, I want it to feel like Blood Angels are just flying forward. All of those different things. You can make Necrons feel like a grind. There's a lot of really cool ways to handle that, and it just gives them a lot more freedom without necessarily having to worry about, oh crap, we didn't realize that Grey Knights, if they use that secondary, are going to just be broken.
I think it sounds like a really hard thing to balance. I think it's going to trash some armies, and that they're not going to intend it to.
Oh, sure. If you do a bad job at writing any rule, then it's not going to be a good rule. But that's on them. That's on them to line up.
That's not my point, though. This is in more rules. This is more rules. This is not rewriting any rule wrong. This is adding a whole nother set of rules to the missions that are specific to well, I'm a Necron, so I simply can't do these missions as well as everybody else. I hope that they do it well, but I bet there's going to be a couple big losers in that. I think that sounds really hard to balance.
Colin, I believe what you just said is true now.
Well, that's true.
The way the rules are written, the missions are written now, there are armies that just can't play the missions, and so they're bad armies. And you use Necrons as an example, which I think is pretty funny.
Yeah. Poor angry robots.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's tons of that.
Yeah, you're
but
right.
Now they can update just the Necron secondary objectives and be like, oh, like, now they get this bonus, or they have to accomplish this, which is something we've literally intended for them to do and have written into their rules. So that gives them the ability they've created the ability to upgrade one without worrying about it making something else super blown out.
Sure.
Mitch, that's an excellent point. You're right. That's a great point. I detract my negativity. Mitch is
and one thing to remember too, like, if it's broken now, it probably won't be broken in 6 months. So that's one of the things that I like about how okay, fair. Usually, it probably won't be broken in 6 months. So,
or Tyranids.
Yeah.
Although, as a Tyranid player, it'll be nice to not have to take recon for the next 3 years.
Well, also, I think if we all pay attention to what Alex is painting here, I think he's going in the right direction. I think Tyranids players need to prepare mentally for the Monster Mash.
Don't get me that excited. Don't get me that worked up. Oh yeah. I got stuff I gotta do today. I can't go to the store and buy all the big monsters. I can't do that.
Yeah. Monster Mash, man. I'm looking forward to it. I want to kill some big bugs.
Chuck, I think that our first 9th edition game should be Tyranids versus Orcs. First 9th edition game. That's what I think.
All right.
Let's get
I think the Tyranids should outnumber the Orcs.
Yeah, I think so too. Seth says Seth Oster's in our chat, and he says, Meganobs and buggies, join me, Chuck.
Killer cans and Meganobs. I'm already there.
Oh man, I love Killicans. I really do. I really
As long
do.
as there's a giant squiggoth in there, I'm down.
Nope.
Oh.
No, it's Forge World, so it isn't allowed to be good. If it is good, they will quickly change their mind and make it not good.
It's had its shining moments, but
right.
no.
I am really looking forward to
Wyvern's.
Wyverns.
So good.
Wyverns just being able to wipe any 6+ man unit off the face of the earth.
So Alex mentioned something when he was describing this to us, and he mentioned it quickly, but I just want to pause on it for a second. 90% of the missions 90% of the tournaments that Chuck and I go to are ITC, and ITC has said they're going to use the book missions. I think that's super significant. I am very excited about that for a couple reasons. I think that tells us that Frontline was involved in the missions. I think that because clearly they're playtesters, right? But I think that means that they've seen the missions and like them. That's great. I think it also means that we won't play a different game than everybody else. And I actually have a little bit of a problem with ETC, ITC, and the other formats, because what you end up with is we're doing a podcast that everyone around the world listens to. Well, not everyone, but people around the world. A small number, a tiny percentage of the total populace spread out across the globe listens to. And sometimes we get feedback that's like, I get that that's good for you in ITC. Is it good for me? And it's very hard to keep up with all those formats. I want to play the same game as everybody else. I want to win a tournament and have everybody know what that meant by the structure that they also play by, if that makes sense.
So I think if you look at the mission structure, you see ITC influence, you see Nova influence, and you see Adepticon influence.
I think just to pile on benefits to what you're talking about, Colin, I've also tried to recruit players who are casual but competitive leaning, and oftentimes having to learn a whole new set of missions is one of the barriers that keeps them from wanting to take that lunge into their first tournament. If I just say, like, hey, you're just going to go play 3 games, it's going to be exact the games you're used to, like, it just makes it a little easier.
Yeah, so I think it's good for comparison, right? Like, it's good that, like, now we have parity between all these different tournaments throughout the ITC, whereas opposed to you have different mission sets and things like that. But that comes with a disadvantage as well. Like, Steph and I were talking about this, and he mentioned, like, well, you know, sometimes going to a different event and playing, like, their mission pack was one of the, like, exciting things about going to that event, like trying something different, playing something a little bit different, and that might be going away. And so I understand, like, some trepidation there, but, like, obviously I think all the benefits far outweigh the negatives.
Right.
I think that like events like Harvester of Souls become a bit more special, where they do it kind of embrace having a different type of tournament, and maybe we'll see a few more of those kind of, like, quote unquote palate cleanser events that are like that are focusing on maybe a different aspect of fun with the hobby of maybe more making it a more narrative type mission with weird wacky rules or whatever they choose to do. I think that could be a really fun way, or like maybe even just campaign-based narrative tournaments become a bit more accessible, because now we can kind of blend the 2 rule sets. We can maybe make things like that happen so that it's more cumulative wins for different sides, and makes team tournaments more interesting. I mean, there's just a lot of interesting things we can do. Plus, with the smaller table size, events can just naturally grow a bit in the spaces that they already have, which is something I think the community actually needed, especially in places where square footage is scarce.
Before we get to table size, I want to go back just real quick and touch on the variety aspect. Jenny, I think one of the things also is, if you keep in mind, between chapter approves and other missions and books and things, GW has put out 20 plus missions for 8th. There's actually more variety in the GW missions than the overall of the tournament scene. So there's still room. I think people have to take that lesson, though, and think about what you're talking about and say, like, hey, what missions am I going to put together for my event that's going to make it interesting for people to come in here and give it a try, right? But there's room in there for TOs to play, which is, you know, both good and bad. Somebody's going to make something that's wrong and awful and way too easy for Eldar to win, and then somebody's going to make something great.
Well, the other thing about this is that mission feedback is, missions are kind of crowdsourced in feedback a little bit, and one of my favorite analogies is, I use Macs and I use PCs, and people say, oh, you're a Mac guy, or oh, you're a PC guy, and I actually hate them both. I think Windows and iOS both have tremendous frustrating problems that need to be fixed. I don't particularly like either of them. Missions are a lot like that. I like the ETC missions the best. I've also played them the least. ETC missions have a lot wrong with them. Nova missions have a lot wrong with them. ITC missions have a lot wrong with them. I'm wondering if we get everybody playing the same set of missions, will that level of feedback make the missions better? I'm wondering that as well. Rather than ETC people helping ETC missions and ITC people helping ITC missions, right?
Well, a company designing a game to another set of missions that has nothing to do with any of the things that people are playing in tournaments.
Right.
Right? Like that's a huge shift. They will be designing to what we're playing.
Well, I think that the aha moment for them on that was probably that infamous game with Matt Rudd and his Flyrants and Spores. You know, they realized, oh man, like there are interactions going on that people are using all the time that we do not realize, and we need to pay a lot more attention to this.
Valhuri in the chat has a really good point. He says, does not matter. The important thing is that we play the same game, and my units don't get nerfed because in some strange format that unit is too good.
Exactly.
I think that's very well
Also
put.
an excellent point.
Yep. I also enjoyed the cat that has decided to be on stream with us. Hello, kitty cat.
She's in charge.
Yeah, right. Okay, I think we've talked enough about that. What's the next topic, Alex?
Okay, we will be spending CP to purchase detachments. If your warlord is in the detachment, specifically a brigade, a battalion, or a patrol, then your detachment is free. And we only know one so far, and that is that a battalion costs 3 CP.
Okay, which sounds like a lot. So
If you're only starting with 1.
Well, so you get that 3 CP back if you have your warlord in there. So basically, one detachment is encouraged, and if you want to run more than that, it's going to cost you. What I think is interesting is I really want to see what a brigade gives you, because I really think it'll be like 6 CP. So you're actually, but the difference is that it will actually like give you an extra 3 CP if it's your only detachment. There'll be some bonus to taking that one large detachment, again, encouraging a mono-faction focus.
I actually don't think it will, Mitch. They've focused on this 12 CP so much. I don't think it's going to give you a bonus. I think it's more like if your army is so many MSUs and you still want to get your full CP, this is a way to do it. We're both, just guessing. So like,
totally,
there's nothing.
No, totally
to it,
possible. Like, I'm just like it's always felt like the battalion or the brigade has always been the ideal thing they want you to take, and so they want to incentivize it. But you absolutely could be right that they just may not do that at all. So
I think
the advantage to the brigade, right, is that you get all those extra slots, whereas like with the battalion, you're really limited on HQs and heavies and fast attack choices.
Yep. 100%.
If we are also seeing a slight points like decrease, like not the actual decrease, but like everything going up a few points, filling out that brigade's going to be rough.
Yeah.
But like some armies, it's not, and those armies will maybe take advantage of that.
But if I had an army that had a bunch of stuff in it, Chuck, and today it's a minimum battalion and a supreme command and an outrider, and it all does fit in a battalion, just fitting it in a battalion makes the army list look better and easier to read, right?
It does. It does mean that all have to be the same clan or legion or whatnot, which I think is great. Part of the reason this is happening.
Yeah, I think that's great.
It really means that it benefits you to play a mono subfaction situation, right? Because that's where you're going to get the most CP.
And if you don't do that, then it penalizes you, and that I think that's okay. I actually don't like the way army lists are today, where it's like I have two dudes leading these 3 ranger units, and then I've got this other detachment that's got another dude. He's got 3 tanks with him. And then here's another detachment where there's another dude with 3 Wraith Lords, or there's another detachment that just has 3 planes in it. And all of them have different rules from each other, and they're just hanging out because they get along, right? It's just like, I don't like that. It's hard to read, and it's awkward to talk about on podcasts.
Well, it's also... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's interesting story-wise. Some armies, like Eldar, that seems super weird. With like Orcs and Chaos, it actually almost... drives the story part of it forward for me, because they're usually war bands that are brought together into a particular thing to go to war. It almost makes sense that like this guy brought his things. But in the end, from the armor reading perspective, it'll be much easier, particularly if it does reduce the number of sub-factions people are seeing, because you just carve out huge sections of rules that don't exist per army.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing that's really interesting is it totally changed all the changes to Ninth change how all the Vigilus formations and stuff feel, because now them costing you CP for your detachments, like if you couldn't, like, but previously obviously I was like, okay, well I took 3 battalions, I've got 18 CP kicking around, I don't care if I throw if I'm committing to spend 3 CP at the beginning of the game every turn or the beginning of the game every single time. Now you have to consider the fact that if I do that, I'm starting with 12 every single time, and I'm paying for the for multiple detachments, and I'm paying for the Vigilus upgrades. Like, that gets really CP intensive really quickly. So if there is some sort of broken combo on paper, it becomes a lot harder to run that engine.
Yeah, just because you don't have the CP to do it after you've taken all those resources.
Right.
In a strategy game like this, restrictions are always good. The more restrictions you have, the more knowledge and tactical acumen it takes to get it out. If you have no restrictions, well, you can just throw everything and it sticks, and it's fine, and nobody has to really break it down and discover what's best. You put everything in, and that's the best.
I'm really interested in what other project Bitch is also working on right now.
I was just refilling my water.
I have a weird one here with playing Genestealer Cult so much is obviously some armies are just going to get punished, and GSC is probably the worst for that because I need multiple detachments. I only get 1 character per detachment,
right?
So that seems a little overly harsh. At the same time, I get it because I've actually had people ask me about a GSC list and say I don't even understand how this list functions.
Yeah,
because this is pure and this one's not, and this character is in here, but I don't care that it loses its ability, and this character is here because it has to be. And like, it was such a complex way to build a list that it just pushed people away from GSC.
Oh yeah. By the way, I thought you said this one's pure, and I heard this one's Pierre. I'm going to have to name a patriarch Pierre, because I think a patriarch named Pierre makes me really happy.
He needs a French or like a little pencil mustache.
Yeah, for sure. I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Hold on a second, Mitch, because Seth has a really good thing to add on to what Alex was saying. Alex, do you think that the day one fact that there could be a day one fact that allows multiple characters for GSC or TAL commanders in the same detachment?
Yeah, I think they should do that because it's not the same as it was before.
You're right.
Taking 3 battalions would literally just neuter GSC, so you're going to have to go with 1 or 2.
Right.
Yeah, I think we might see all of that change. There's a definite possibility for that. I also think it's really interesting. We're seeing this, and it totally changes now. Like, things like very specifically, the things that come to mind are Inquisition, the Tempestus Scions, a few different like mini factions that kind of exist. That all of a sudden now taking them as an extra detachment becomes a real commitment because it's costing you CP up front. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be a really interesting kind of balance. Are they going to roll? Like, I could see them taking a few of those and rolling them all. Like, I could see Deathwatch and Inquisition getting a rule. Same with Grey Knights of like, if you have the right Ordo, they can like these units can just be put into this detachment. Or something to that effect. Same thing with like Assassins. They've gotten the update where they are again not affecting any of the faction purity rules anymore. It'll be interesting to see how a few of those sub factions really work. Specifically with Scions, that's tough having to always take a separate detachment to unlock all of those stratagems. That's a real commitment.
Okay, shall we move on? Let's move on.
Yeah.
I'd like to say one more thing, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure,
I think in general you're going to see a great reduction in the number of characters, I feel like, just because slots are going to be hard to come by, depending on whether or not the Supreme Command detachment stays in the game. Because are people going to be willing to pay the command points to put a Supreme Command in? Probably, I mean, maybe sometimes, but not always. So, like, battalion's only got 3 HQ slots. So we'll see how that changes.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, especially when you think about like Tau and Eldar. Eldar lists, the best Eldar lists have a lot of characters that are really hard to get rid of because they need their psychers get such a few, like Eldar psychers get almost like 1 power each, right? And so you need a bunch of them in order to make the combos work to make that army function. And Tau is similar. You need all of the commanders to make the army work. Well, they're one of the best things the army has. So that's a really interesting point, Danny.
Chaos too. Like
Chaos even more so. Yeah.
Well, I think Chaos is probably the worst one because it requires the CP, so it can't afford the detachments, maybe, depending on how much they cost. But it needs those to function. But, I mean, the game's shrinking up in space a little bit will help Chaos a ton.
Yeah, I'm fine with Supreme Command continuing to exist if it's got a CP penalty on it.
Yeah. But, like, with the battalion being a 3 CP scenario, I'm thinking the lesser ones will be 1 CP ones, and then maybe 5 for the brigade. But what if they're all 3 CP? Would you go up 3 CP to get those character slots? Like that's
it's not just that; it's also fortifications. Like, how are fortifications going to work in Ninth?
They should just be gone because they're dumb.
I hope it's free.
Yeah, I mean, 1 free one for every army. Good.
I think one free slot it would be fine. Or if there's like 1 CP to just take 1. Something like that, like it's an unlockable slot, like for one assassin or 1 inquisitor. They've done that before. We know that they're not going away because they just keep coming out with new fortifications over and over and over again. So they're definitely going to. Yeah, that would also work. But I think that's going to be another interesting one of like how does that end up actually affecting the game? Or maybe fortifications are just a CP cost and not a points cost. If every army is going to end up having one, that might be the way to go.
Do we actually like fortifications? I think they're kind of dumb.
Some of them are cool.
I've enjoyed the noodle trees effect on the game and nothing else.
Danny, I would say they look cool. I don't like I don't like the idea that
Sisters Army I really like.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. The Sisters one is really well done.
Yeah, it's such a cool like thematic thing. But the other part of it is I think that if fortifications end up being 40K's version of kind of endless spells, where every single faction has one and it gives a specific effect and it's something you can purchase CP or CPM points or whatever it ends up being, that could be a much more translatable kind of way to view them.
Yeah. It's also just, it is a little weird to be like, okay, we're always fighting in our houses that happen to be this far away from each other. Like it's a little weird.
Yeah.
It's the front line. It's a skirmish.
Hey, Alex, our Tyranids need to go. Our Tyranids need to go take this planet, but don't worry, we brought buildings with us. Like what?
That's
no.
Right. That makes the most sense because Tyranids would just friggin' deep strike their buildings where they need to go. Like some spore colony slams into the planet. You betcha.
Yeah, that's true.
I think fortifications take a backseat now that we have much more in-depth terrain rules. I think people were taking fortifications because there were no terrain rules, and fortifications came with a rule set of their own. And now that terrain has rules, you don't really need a fortification as much.
And again, because of the audio connection I have to Alex, I got really excited for a little bit that we have train rules. I thought there were going to be trains in the game, and I got
Squats
really
are back, guys. Get some land trains.
Because I like trains.
It's
like the Ultramarine novel all over again.
No, I'm with you. It's all good. I got excited for choo-choo trains and 40K for a minute there. I'm all right now.
All right.
You know they'd be steam trains because the humans are the Space Marines are shooting projectile guns. So you know that there'd be steam engines driving around. Okay. I'm
got another one for us, Alex?
Yeah, sorry. I'm all right now.
Let's start talking about some core stratagems. Okay. So there's going to be at least 7 new core stratagems to the game. They've released a couple. One this morning, actually. So I'll start with one that's near and dear to me, which is that Overwatch is almost gone. So Overwatch is now a 1 command point stratagem. You get it once per phase.
There will also be units that will have a special keyword or ability to Overwatch as well, I think they said in the article.
Yeah, the Ultramarines already have it. I'm sure Tau will get something.
In Crusade. They did not mention that for match play.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
There may be
I
an
was really
FAQ.
actually hoping that Overwatch would be linked to leadership, that you'd have to roll 2d6 and roll under your leadership to Overwatch, because then leadership could actually have a point in this game. But
Yeah, but we haven't seen the rules yet, and if with the morale
Yeah.
rules coming, that might actually mean something. But yeah,
sure.
I'm
No,
excited.
I was hopeful.
So
Well,
here's
Mitch,
here's
they
what I
did-
think
they-
about
they-
this. Oh,
Okay.
go
I was
ahead,
going to say they did promise that they completely overhauled the morale system. So,
Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead, Chuck.
I was going to say, so I played Orcs for a while there, and I played somewhere between 120 and 150 boys most of the time. I could not finish my games in 3 hours on the clock, right? Like I couldn't finish with my time. When I started putting my opponent's Overwatch time on their clock, I finished my games in time.
Mm-hmm.
And their Overwatch never made a significant difference in the outcome of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it was, for the most part, a waste of time, except for when it wasn't. So it's sort of sad that it costs a CP, right? Like if it's against a pile of aggressors or Satyrians or the entire Tau army, suddenly that Overwatch matters. They're not going to hesitate to spend a CP on that,
Yeah, and that's
and
when
then
it should
the rest
happen.
of it won't have to happen because it is a whole shooting phase when I charge your whole army for no effects.
Overwatch is a rule for the Tau army right now. That's what it is.
Yeah.
There are other situations, like you said, aggressors where it matters.
And
But
Iron
for the-
Hands.
But for the most part, yeah, and Iron Hands. But for the most part, Overwatch exists to make Tau functional, right?
Yeah. Well, and they're
I know
rip-head
for-
shooting combat, so they're fine.
Tyler's got a really good point, Mitch. He says rolling for leadership to then roll Overwatch is more steps, and one of the stated
Oh, I'm
reasons
aware
it's an
of why
extra
it's a
work
bad
was
idea
the-
too. I just like that
Oh.
as a rule solution in general.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm fine with what
I
they
think
did.
Overwatch is ridiculous.
Sure.
It most usually does nothing, and it's an element of risk where, like, you're charging a Castellan, right? What's it going to do to you? Is it going to destroy everything that charges it because it happens to roll hot? It might, right? Like I don't like that wild randomness combined with the fact that it's a bunch of rolling on my turn from my opponent. 'Cause
I
it slows the game
would
down.
like that for flamers to always be able to Overwatch, because that just feels
I
super
agree with
dramatic.
that.
That feels like that should be the ability of that weapon. Like, oh no, you're running at me, whoosh. Like that feels very correct.
That was a cool part about Flamers, right? And like, other than them being extremely effective against aircraft,
Yeah, that is
was
really
like
their biggest thing.
thematically, like the best part of them was that they were really good on Overwatch.
Okay, so what do we got?
Next one, cut them down. 1 CP. When your opponent falls back, you get to dish out a mortal wound for every unit or every model you have in engagement range.
What does engagement
So-
range mean?
We don't know
One
yet,
Combat.
It's
Engagement
within
range.
1 inch.
but we don't have a measurement yet.
They've said on their thing it's 1 inch for sure
What is
on
1
the
inch?
GW page. Yep.
Okay.
So if they
So-
fall back from combat, you can take. I actually feel like this is going to be a trap most of the time.
I think it's
It
pretty
is.
bad.
It's going to trash unless you're Orc Boys or Termagants.
And then you have
But-
to have all 30 boys within an inch.
I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. If I get a bunch of grots up on your tank, and then do you want to fall back?
Well,
They're
they'll
getting
never fall
clogged in
back.
the tread, Chuck.
That's what they do. They get in there with the screwdrivers and just start taking it apart.
They're
That's how we
looting
get
it
our
as
loot.
As it's going, yeah.
And the
I
screwdriver.
mean, thinking about it practically, like if you did have, whatever, I'll say it's 30 Termagants and it was the right target, would you pay 1 CP for 5 mortals? Hell
Yes.
yeah, that's a great deal. But it's
Well-
very conditional, and I doubt it's going to be good very often.
Yeah, there's
Hey,
several
guys.
scenarios. One guy's falling back and he's going to go grab the objective and win me the game. Sure, there goes my CP. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Breaking news on Games Workshop site, we have the Pariah preview just went up, and we are finding out that Ephrael Stern and Kyganel? I don't know how to say that guy's name. The Harlequin
It's
friend
Eagle.
of the Sister
Eagle the
Cycle.
elf.
What?
Eagle the elf.
Teagle. Why not? They can join any Imperium army. So everyone can use the Sister and Harlequin. So that is what we were learning. We also have the new Inquisitor
Draxus. So and then the Illuminor Zaraz as well. That model, all that's going up for pre-order. It looks like, and the Adeptus Sororitas. That's a Black Library collector's edition with all kinds of sister stuff that looks pretty fucking amazing. Sorry for swearing, but yeah, that looks pretty rad. That's some cool stuff. Go check it out, guys.
Okay. Breaking news.
The other stratagem that was just released this morning is 2CP. I don't know if I'll remember what it's called.
Desperate Breakout.
Yeah, that's the one. You can fall back through opposing models. So this is something that we had kind of a thought for a while. Of GW had kind of hinted that you'll be able to fall back through models, and people thought that was going to be a universal, like, oh, just you can always fall back through models. No, you can fall back with one unit through models for 2 command points. So if you want to stay safe, if you want to stay safe on the wrap, you need 2 units to wrap.
I don't love this, and it's only because hugging is already hard. Like for players of all skill levels, trapping people in close combat is challenging, right? And it's a hard rule to teach people. It's a hard rule for people to start watching out for. This adds additional complexity. This separates the rich from the poor to me. This makes it so that really good players will really trap you and you'll be screwed and everyone else won't be able to do it, is my worry, Alex. But you're the close combat, you're the most experienced close combat person here. So what do you think?
I like the stratagem for the people that feel that tri-pointing is a feel-bad moment. So this gives them a bailout. I'm okay with it. It will also kind of dictate how people deploy their armies.
Mm-hmm.
Like their screens will be all tightly wrapped together because they know if they give you 2 units, then nothing changes. In certain situations, it may be a command point sink. You know that you can drag command points out of your opponent.
Yeah.
All in all, it's going to be a little bit more challenging for combat armies, which isn't great, but I'm okay with it. We still need to know more. Also, I have a feeling that the fly keyword is changing. I don't think fly is going to let you leave combat and still shoot. So that changes things drastically for how many things should be allowed to fall back.
Okay. I guess I said you've played the most close combat, but Chuck rarely has guns.
Yeah. I'll just say straight up, it feels bad, and I don't care. I feel like I've had to adapt to the edition because that's the way it was. Every time I wrap somebody who doesn't understand, I feel super bad.
Yep, that's right.
And I'm happy to just have that bad feeling go away, and I'll adapt my game style. Right? Like,
I actually want wrapping gone because I want close combat to be balanced as appropriate. Because the problem with wrapping is if it's Alex and I playing, I say, Alex, I think this guy's wrapped. Do you agree? And he says yes, and then we move on with our turn. If I play a stranger, we fight about it, right? Like that. It's way too finicky. It's too fiddly. I don't like that. I didn't like that it existed, and now it is even harder. So that's my thought.
Yeah, it's much less.
The fact that, I guess we'll get to the next rule then, the fact that we have blast weapons now, though, may mean that we're never going to wrap anyway, because the game's just not going to have big 30 and 20-man units anymore.
Mm.
We might not have the models to wrap with. We might be getting into combat and getting engaged, but it's with more elite units. Like if I put down 20 Gene Stealers, and that means that a Wyvern shooting twice can shoot 50 times at me, I don't know if that's worth it anymore.
Well,
Seth added, by the way. Sorry, Chuck. Seth added, by the way, that hugging is time consuming, and he's right.
Yeah, very much so.
That's the other thing.
In your Wyvern scenario, I agree. But if we are in a game where we have less models, who's bringing a Wyvern? Because if it's not shooting at trash, it's not killing anything.
Well, that's the meta
So,
back and forth, right? Like, do people never bringing hordes again, so the Wyverns don't show up? And then people go, oh, nobody's bringing these blast weapons. I'll start bringing hordes back.
Yeah.
And people go, oh, hordes are showing up. Then the Wyverns show up.
Like, my thought on it was my battalion would have 30 boys and then 2 10-man grot units. Because that 30 boys, for somebody who's just left the horde meta behind, I can deep strike them. They can come in turn 3. Then I can jump them turn 4. And they can't handle it anymore after the rest of my army hit them. So that 30-man large orc block of boys does great work. And against somebody who, is ready for them, well, great, they get wrecked, whatever.
Mhm.
I'm not fully invested.
I mean, that's the meta gamble anyway, right? Like,
Yeah.
obviously Jeff Poole is an excellent player, but part of his decision making was, here, killing 200 models with your stalker bolt rifles, you bastards.
Yep. I've counted your bullets. There aren't enough.
Yeah. So let's actually talk about blast weapon properly, since I just kind of referenced it. So if your squad size is 6 to 10, anything that shoots a variable number of shots will roll a minimum of 3. If you have 11 or more models in a squad, it's a flat 6, or maximum number of shots.
Yeah, and it sounds like blast is going to go on a lot of different things: grenades, some big guns, flamers, that sort of thing. Like, it should be pretty prevalent.
Paul says that GW said that like 170 plus weapons are getting blast.
173, I think.
Yeah.
I wonder how many
And
weapons there are.
So
I wonder
I'm excited
what
for,
percentage that
the-
is, because there's a lot of useless guns in this game.
I'm excited for the Death Core of Krieg Mars Alpha pattern Lehman Russes that can take 3 plasma cannons on them, all being able to get 3 shots each when shooting at a 6+ man unit, and then just throwing a Punisher cannon on top.
I think you know which weapons they are if you think back to it, because if everything that went from a small blast went to a D3, everything was a large blast went to a D6. I'm guessing it's all of those weapons just getting retrograded.
Maybe not all. Some things are very very much shown that it's a large number of focused shots. Like, I don't think the Doomsday Arc is going to be a blast, or maybe it is, but I see that as a very many direct shots.
It used to be a large blast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah, and maybe it's little gun too.
I think this exists because of Mitch's point he's made 17 times on the podcast, which is that in the current game, wounds are the most important statistic by math, and they've done nothing to get away from that. This gets away from that. Right?
Yep.
And Marines got away from that too. Like, we went to that tournament and that Jason ran in the winter. Well, I don't know what it was called. The major that was over in Ocean Shores. And Marines had become the dominant thing, and nobody's game was going 3 hours. Nobody. Well, except Peter, because he brought a gazillion Guardians. But everybody else wasn't going 3 hours because, like, nobody had a ton of models, right? And I think that this is exactly that. This is helping gun lines deal with hordes. And I think it's specifically to speed the game up. And I like things that speed the game up. Also, I'm fine I like the game better when I have 50 models over 150. So, there's that.
Yep.
What I'm excited
Go ahead.
is demolition charges on bikes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Flat 6 demo charges times 5.
But you're also planning on using your demo charges on a horde. So,
10 frag grenades
Alex,
on silence.
You're not gonna have CP for that, my friend, because of GSC and the new detachments.
Yeah, you'll be GSC.
That's gonna be all your CP for the whole game in that one moment.
But those 10 grots are dead.
And unit of intercessors just disappears, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will comment that I hated when what was the secondary called that cared about units being 10 or larger.
The Reaper.
Yeah, Reaper. And I hated that because Guard was just like, all right, all my units are 9, fine. And Eldar was like, okay, fine, we won't make anything 10. And like other armies are like, well, I have to be 10. Because that's the way armies work, I don't like whenever they pick an arbitrary number. I just don't, because there's always certain armies that can just abuse it and get around it, and there's other armies that can't.
It always creates a divide on power balance, yeah, for sure.
And it makes Orc Boys worthless, right? There's certain things that have to come in giant units. Are Gene Stealers good if 173 guns in the game are really good at shooting them? And they can't hug well? Probably not.
Yeah. It's that combo right there. Because most of those horde armies were also using hugs to hold your ground.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it worries me about armies like Orcs and Tyranids. But maybe it is Monster Mash, Alex.
Well, I think with the way they've treated 8th edition, they've bought enough of my faith to believe that there's still going to be something there that we just haven't seen it yet.
Sure. I believe that.
So vehicles and monsters can shoot into combat.
Yes.
At a minus.
No, they can shoot into their combat.
Right. Correct.
Yes, of course.
Important distinction.
They can shoot into their own engagement range. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think this will
Unless
have
there's
an
last
effect on the game at all. It's just a waste of time.
This is the rule. Okay, so obviously the Overwatch thing came out, and a lot of players were like losing their mind, Tau players specifically. And I was like, guys, yeah, Overwatch is gone, but your Riptides can shoot into combat.
Yeah. I think you'll be all right.
Yeah.
I think this is.
I think it's great. I think the giant vehicles should not be stuck with grots around them and be like, I don't know how to kill these grots. These grots are just here. I have no answers.
Well, they knock on the door, and they ask a knock-knock joke, and the guys inside are like, they have to stop and answer the joke. So they miss a shooting.
It's like a phone ringing. Someone's going to have to answer it at some point.
Yeah.
As a guard and AdMech player, like, this is amazing. You might actually see Land Raiders on the table, like, which is shocking.
Seems like on that first weekend of us playing, we might have to have some Shadow Swords come visit the table, Chuck.
Oh yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. Actually, I'm more of a Vulcan Mega Bolter kind of guy.
You think you'll spend the CP to Overwatch with it?
Yeah.
2 CP, because I want to Overwatch on 5s.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that, with the 20 Mega Bolter shots and the 36 Heavy Bolter shots and the 4 Las Cannon shots and the, 12 Stubber shots? Yeah.
It's all right.
Definitely want to.
Valerie's got a good point. The Shadow Sword can already shoot into combat, but only with its heavy bolters. This means the Volcano Cannon can shoot into the combat that it's in. And that is great.
Should go into a little bit more in depth. You can call your shots while you're in combat. So if you think that you'll be able to blow out of combat with your initial shots, you can say the 3 heavy bolters are going into combat, the battle cannon is shooting at the tank. If you don't finish off the stuff you're in combat with, you've actually wasted your battle cannon shots. But I think it's cool that you can call your shots like that and see what happens.
I think
I like that there's a bit of tactical options while you're in combat.
Yeah, this is super great for the Plague Burst Crawler. It's fun. You shoot your flamers and your super heavy bolter, and then you're like, and I'm going to drop a bomb over there if I get out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
and
they
then
can't
also,
shoot blast weapons in combat, right?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Can't
So-
shoot blast. That's
Right, so like the turret on Lehman Russ is going to be like, all right, well, I'm going to shoot something else anyway, just in case I get lucky,
Right.
and like burn myself out of combat.
It adds a little
think-
drama.
I think the Punisher cannon on Russ's just became a lot more valuable since it should be able to shoot into combat.
No joke.
And you can give it a -1 with tank aces. So all of a sudden that's 40 shots, AP1. So it's a
Except
heavy
that-
bolter.
Except that gun is really good against hordes,
Yeah.
which I don't think is going to be the meta.
I think if I was going to take a shot at it, you're going to continue to see high strength, high AP, 2 damage guns are going to be your sweet spot because they're going to help you with everything that's the game sort of narrows down a little bit. Those are going to fit in really well.
Yeah, so much stuff has a 2-up save that I just do not care at all about no AP guns on the Lehman Russ. The Punisher gun, hate it.
Yeah.
Like,
But
no
the
AP
minus
No,
1
it
AP is
has
great, but-
AP1 with tank aces.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Still.
yeah, you got that's a minimum.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely interesting things because we are going to, I think, oscillate back and forth to people bringing some sort of horde if everybody moves too far away.
Right.
So that's why, I think Flamer Tank's got a huge buff in this edition.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's worth it to take the flame responses on your tanks more often, which is cool because you never saw those before, right?
Well, they're all
So
overcosted, so now they might be
Right.
good.
Well, yeah, that's a great point because not being able to shoot your flamethrowers in combat was dumb.
Agreed.
what they're meant. Get off my tank.
Exactly.
All right. I wonder if that also makes big monsters better, right? That makes
Yep.
that makes the Exocrine better. That makes the Exocrine a lot better, and the Exocrine is super fun.
He is.
Yeah, I don't know if it does
And
much
he's
for
not
the
-1.
monsters, because not many of them shoot, but it's something. I'm excited to at least try a DAC effects every once in a while.
Yeah, the minus
Yeah,
1 is kind of harsh on
yeah.
the tiered monsters.
Well, so because all the tiered monsters mostly are assault weapons, they're not going to take a -1 to shoot
Oh.
into combat.
Well, then never mind. I retract my comment. I didn't know that.
Well, and the Exocrine, the one that's in combat, didn't move, so you can use the stratagem.
Oh.
I haven't played in too long,
Right.
Alex. It's just +1 to hit, right? If you haven't moved.
Yeah, it's not even strat. It's just you do
Oh,
it.
right.
It gives him +1 to hit.
Right. Okay.
And he gets
So, yeah.
to shoot twice.
He'll do pretty well. I'm tentatively excited about Chaos Demon Engines in the same fashion.
Yeah.
They're very much similar to Tyranid Big Bugs. So we'll
Mauler
see.
Fiend.
Not the Mauler Fiend as much. Defilers, Soul Grinders, if they could get
Defilers.
points adjustments that's appropriate. Like those models have a lot of shooting. They're really great in close combat. They're that all-around kind of model that didn't really function very well in 8th because nobody needed, you built your layers of screening and such, and the model either shot or it did combat or it did screening. You didn't need this thing that was doing everything.
Right.
In a more elite game, I think that might change. So
One of the things I'm concerned about here, and I'm not saying that this is going to happen, because I actually have a lot of faith in GW's ability to make a good rule set. I'm a little worried about the game being too killy, because I think that the Marine books made the game way too killy, and lots of armies were dying on the second turn of the game, and only certain armies could even hold up against that. And then the Eldar Psychic Awakening did the same thing. Well, what we're saying now is you can't hug people easily. Hordes are going to get hurt by blast weapons, and tanks can shoot in combat, so you can't hug tanks. I don't want the game to be, I have 15 models and Mitch has 25 models, and whoever goes first is going to get a big advantage because they're going to lose a third. The other person's going to lose a third of their army, right?
That's actually a
not
concern
good.
I have as well.
Yeah, because they didn't seem to have great vision on that with the Psychic Awakening books on that problem, and the game got so bloody killy that it's all we could talk about on the podcast. It was frustrating.
I have built some AdMech lists that even if you adjust for like points, going up on stuff, I don't understand if there's a reduced number of models for my opponent. Like, yes, you can keep some stuff off the table, but that just means I get to focus down something more. That's not necessarily solving that problem unless null deploy becomes a thing. But then that just tilts the balance the opposite way, which is not good either.
Right.
Something we haven't talked about that fits into that as well is that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. That's great.
All right, what rules next?
Good. Go for something else.
What rules next?
We'll lump
Alex?
these together. So the table size is getting smaller, and it varies on point level, and so does the number of detachments that also changes on points level. So 2K points, it's a 44 by 60 and 3 detachments maximum. So pretty damn similar to what we're used to. But if you scale that down, it actually shrinks the table size again, and it shrinks the number of detachments you're allowed to take.
Well, 44 by 60 is so it's actually a bunch of less space, right? Because when you're dealing with geometry, right, when you take a dimension off both sides, you lose a huge amount of space.
Yeah.
So it's actually a much smaller table, and this fits really well, Alex, in with my killy concern, right? Because everything has the same range. Unless they're going to FAQ every range and every gun, heavy bolters became way better, right? 24-inch range guns became way better. There's a number of guns that are balanced because of 36-inch range, like Hive Guard, right? Hive Guard, if they were 48-inch range, am I smoking crack? They're 36-inch range. And that's right. Okay. If Hive Guard were 48-inch range, they'd be dominant. They'd be super crazy overpowered, right, Alex?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no arguments here.
Yeah.
Well, and it's the same thing. It's not just for that. All of the intercept powers become a lot more powerful. Like Space Wolves, now if I drop Combi Plaz, Wolfguard Terminators in the middle of the board, I now have 24 inches in both directions for intercept with a ton of shots that you just that becomes a lot harder to avoid. And it's the same thing for the example I was discussing with someone. You take the Scorpius, the Whirlwind Scorpius, and you hide that behind something, and then you put your because of how the character rules work now, you put your Rune Priest on top. So the Scorpius is invisible, the Rune Priest is up there, and then you've got other models nearby. The Rune Priest is within 3 of a friendly vehicle, and now you can intercept literally anything that Rune Priest can see on the entire table, which doesn't necessarily feel great.
Which is why we're hoping that the train rules are significantly better, but we'll get to that later.
Yep.
To answer Seth's question, for the group is, how long will it take the community to adopt to the new table size? I think immediately. Every tournament will have these new table sizes. That's what I think.
There'll be some holdouts, some traditionalists.
The game is balanced to this size.
Yeah.
That's all you need to say.
Right.
They've written rules coming out to these table sizes. If you go, I'm not doing that, and you make the game larger, you're going to skew how the game is supposed to be played.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that will happen. I'll throw my rant out here. I like the table size change. I was there when we went from 8x4 to 6x4. I think 8x4 to 6x4 was a much better change because you literally couldn't use that space for anything other that wasn't abusive and awful. This is interesting, and not from the game perspective. Take that off the table. Pun not intended. But this is like logistically, this is interesting. They didn't shrink the mat to a small enough size that a standard folding table could hold the mat yet. And lots of stores have 6x4 tables to support their 40K players. And now we have these 6x4 tables that you put a mat sort of awkwardly in the middle of. I will say it's kind of nice to play with a place to put your minis. But I feel like they missed a little bit here. They could have gone slightly smaller, and people could pile a lot more games into a store by having regularly available tables. Right? What's that?
It's 4 kill team boards.
Yeah, I know what it is. I understand how they made the choice. It's actually one shipping container. That's but they could have made the choice to benefit our stores and our TOs who are running things in hotels. Who, like, for instance, now they just have to cut all their pieces of plywood for the TO at the hotel. But your store owner, who has, like, our local has 15 6x4s. That hurts. So I think you won't see as much immediate community adoption because there's a cost behind it.
Competitively, not outside of competitive.
Well,
if you want to play on a 6x4, go for it. I'll probably still play on a 6x4 every once in a while. Okay. But yeah, at a tournament, I think it'll be immediate.
Yeah.
And I'll be interested to see how that all goes down. I just feel like this space could have been a little bit more of a benefit to our TOs out there. I don't know how the game runs at such a small space though, so maybe it's not possible.
Right. I'm actually, we're all worried about it being too killing. I think an important note on the smaller table size is that, 4 inches? Is it 4? I thought it was 6 inches shorter on the.
6 inches, yeah.
He said 44. Wouldn't that be 42?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's only 4 inches, I guess. It's 44 by 60, right?
I think that's why it's bugged so many people. Is it's just such a random measurement.
Well, so what I was going to say is the table itself being a bit smaller potentially means you have to run around the table less often, which speeds up the game and is less exhausting. The problem is if because of the awkward size, will the table actually be smaller, right? The playmat's smaller, like Chuck is saying. The table is smaller.
They won't be at first. I think people will adapt and meet it at some point.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think that the other question is, does it make more sense, like, which way does it, like, if you run it like sideways so that the longest edges are facing the players, you gain a foot. But if you run it the other way where it's 44 inches, you actually gain more. But then you have to have 5 foot wide tables, which a lot of people don't have. But that probably is the most optimum way to do it if you can, because a 2.5 foot lean is about all you can do, and you have to go around the table anyway.
Yeah, so. I know. My back and a lot of the short players out there will appreciate that 6 inches of shrinkage as far as reach goes, for sure.
Alex, just because we've been going for a while, how many more rules do we have to go through?
Not a whole lot. We can lump a few together.
Let's lump a few together. Let's kind of power through the rest of the list here.
Yeah, sure. Well, okay, one of the quick ones is that heavy weapons penalty only exists for infantry now. Everything else ignores the heavy penalty. And one of the weird little snippets that they tossed in there that I noticed is if anyone in the unit moves in an infantry unit, you take the penalty, which is different.
Good. Because that's silly and you don't remember who moved and who didn't move.
Yeah. I am excited. Always hitting on 4s Ridge Runners that can whip around the table at 14 inches a turn.
Hitting on 3s.
Yeah, hitting on 3s.
Can we just all agree that this is great? Because the people that were suffering the penalty were in vehicles designed to shoot these. Like, it was silly, and I think it's great. Anybody want to argue against me?
Nope. No.
All right, move it on.
Nope.
It does the most for the worst vehicles. Like Marine vehicles that were operating on 3s with full rerolls, they didn't care about moving. These vehicles that were kind of obscure and only hit on 4s and had to move anyway, great, awesome.
And Alex, there's a lot of planes that don't have power of the machine spirit that are wrecked
Yeah.
because of moving.
Well,
There's a
and,
bunch of planes
like
there's a
Lehman
bunch of guard
Russ's-
stuff where it's just like,
Yeah.
well, the
Exactly.
Lehman Russes can at least sit still. There's guard planes that like you have to move, and then they're terrible at shooting after they've moved. It's like, who designed this thing?
Yeah. Valkyries
Imperium.
might actually be playable now.
Well,
That'd
this
be
is
great.
this is
I
a
like it.
massive buff for vultures. This is a
Yep.
massive buff
Yeah.
for vultures.
But vultures already went up a lot in cost, and they're going to go up more, presumably. So, yeah, we'll see if they're
Well, I
even
don't know if
playable.
they're going to go up more. I don't know about that, but they just became amazing. So
Yeah, but are they good now that like we won't see as many infantry units? I don't know.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah,
and they have no AP.
so many
And
layers
they have no AP.
complexity there.
You're right, Danny. That's a good point.
So, light cover gives you your +1 save at range. Heavy cover gives you a +1 save in close combat unless the person charged you. So you can actually get a +1 to your save in combat, which is pretty cool.
Well,
So it's
that one is
covered out-
weird.
it's-
Like the way it's written is very bizarre. Like it's hard to tell whether they're talking about the charger or the chargee, like as being the person that gets the +1 save.
A little bit.
So yeah, but I hear you. Yeah, I think your interpretation is correct.
So are they saying that regardless of whether and how much I can see of you, if your thing is touching cover, you get +1 save? Is that what they're saying?
It's very similar to how we've been playing it in the ITC.
let's go overall for Colin particularly. All of the terrain discussion is around this idea that if you're touching this thing, you get this benefit.
Even if you're not infantry?
Correct.
Okay. I hate arguing about whether things can be seen or not. So that's why
Yeah.
I'm asking.
They're cutting a bit of it, which
Well, the
Alex,
next
you should
one
segue
here,
into the next terrain benefit.
Yeah.
obscuring. If a piece of terrain is 5 inches high, you cannot see behind it, unless it's an aircraft or something with 18 wounds or more. So you can hide your winged hive tyrant behind something that's 5 inches high. It's an unending cone 5 inches directly above the piece of terrain.
As
Huzzah!
long as it has the obscuring rule, that keyword.
Yes, it has to have the obscuring. Every single piece of terrain that's 5 inches or taller is going to have obscuring.
I
mean,
believe
people are
this is a
gonna-
lot of
people are
how
gonna
they're
go.
going to pull the killie out until Mitch shows up with all of his artillery.
Yeah, pretty much.
I own 9 wyverns. I can't help it. I have a problem.
Yeah.
Well, you should
I
sell
think
some of
that's-
those because that's a stupid number of wyvern stone.
The 9 basilisks I'm scared of, Mitch.
I
Have
think
both.
line of sight shooters are going to take negatives to hit, but we'll see about that.
Yeah, we'll see.
Ooh, that sounds like that sounds like something Alex came up with while he was dreaming. That's what that sounds like.
Yeah, I would dream up the same thing.
But the reality is that indirect fire is way too powerful right now.
yes.
So-
Oh,
Yeah,
it is a
let's-
super powerful ability.
Also, the real scary ones are Scorpius Disintegrators because it's 3d3. So if you have like 6+ guys, it's like 9 shots every time. That's gross.
Aircraft can leave the battlefield,
Okay.
and they also have given hints to how strategic reserves are going to work with their description of aircraft leaving the battlefield. So as the turns progress, your deep strikes are going to be able to be more effective. There are turn 1 deep strikes, and from what it seems like they're talking about, if your opponent enters your deployment zone on turn 1, you are going to be able to destroy them with a counter deep strike. Like, I'm talking show up at unfailable charge levels of counter deep strike.
So their example was show up in close combat.
Yep.
Yes.
From your board edge is how it was phrased, I believe. Like anything, it's within a certain distance of your board edge, your deployment zone, you will be able to do that.
Yeah.
Well, that all makes great sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Particularly if
it
we're going to
makes
shrink
it
the space between
interesting
us.
because it doesn't remove the space for a like Gene Stealer unit to be able to be in your deployment zone turn 1. It just allows the opponent to have some counterplay to it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which means you can make a higher risk, right? And I like
Yes.
the ability to make leveraged risks.
I also think this is a great scenario for a new player. I have myself, and I'm sure several people on here have won several games because a new player put too much in reserve. And I was just like, great, YOLO, everything attacks. And then they're just stuck.
Right.
And they've lost the game off of one mistake, and that's not a fun experience. So now they can at least bring their guys in and have a fighting chance, and we can play a game still. So I think this feels like a very positive change.
It also sounds like, I think hidden in the airplanes can leave the table rule is we've made Eldar Flyers not annoying to play against. I think that is I think that's what that is. I think that the way
so.
Like nobody's crashable now, right? And not
Yeah,
just
basically.
Eldar are uncrashable.
which is good as well. Oh, Marauder Destroyers maybe get to come back.
If you could put them in a deployment zone, I don't know.
Right?
Yeah.
They also said that the Flyers can leave. I almost feel like Flyers will have to leave. So
Well,
you
the
may
table's
only
smaller.
get half.
The table's smaller and they have minimum distances.
Yeah. So this is one that I just got. They didn't say it, but I just got it from the Orc Faction Focus notes. Terrain might also be handing out a -1 to hit, depending on the piece of terrain. So it might be something more special, but terrain doing a little more again. Also, of course, we've got you max out at a +1 to hit or a -1 to hit. That's as good as it goes.
Yeah.
So no more -4 possessed.
And 6 is always hit.
And 6 is
But-
always hit, right?
Capping at -1 means 6 is always hit.
Exactly.
Well, if you have penalties to your ballistic skill and like you're like shooting at a Colexus assassin or something like that, or you're -1 to hit or something,
sure.
that can make you.
Yeah,
be
there you
unable
go. The
to
Colexus. They're so very narrow space.
Yeah. Denny's like, let me bring you this incredibly niche example of why you're wrong,
shoot.
Chuck.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, but that's Danny. He's
Well,
like, you're wrong. You
If
know
there's
what?
a piece of terrain that
I
gives a
need to explain
-1 to
why,
hit,
why it's
and
gonna
the
bother
Colexus is going to be standing in it every time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But not
exactly.
anymore.
and that's another thing that helps people against Eldar Flyers, right? Like Eldar Flyers are one of the biggest feel bads. That's another thing that addresses that. It does not address my feel bad, which is that Iron Hands has 17 ways to make their tanks hit on 2s. But whatever. Right? Because they already hit on 3s and they've got a bunch of +1s to hand out, or they could just say, this guy hits on 2s. But whatever. I don't know that Iron Hands that sort of list is really what we have to worry about anymore. So probably
We'll see.
I don't know, Colin. I'm pretty excited about my Leviathan Dreadnought shooting his storm cannons into combat now.
Yeah. Because people used to make it to combat to him all the time.
Right. Well, okay. Fair point, Chuck.
Yeah, it's not like he couldn't fall back out of combat anyway.
And now he can fall back through people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now that
Hopefully
Leviathan
don't
Dreadnought
roll
can be like 2
5.
CP, I'm going through this guy. Do, 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 do. All right, what else we got?
You must make your charge roll to all your declared charge targets.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's
No
another
more charging this
that's-
close guy with the actual target all the way over there.
I think they're trying. This is what I was talking about earlier about the difference between what the really good players use and what everybody else uses. This is another example of where they're pushing the rule set together so that there's not as much of a divide between Nick Nanavati and some dude at a tournament, right?
Mhm.
Because the way you can abuse charge for movement is gross.
Oh, God. Yeah.
It's gross.
Oh yeah.
And Alex and I know it all too well. Hey, look, my unit ended up going 300 miles this turn because I knew every cheat I could do. And it's also, I may not be able to make this charge. Well, I'll charge this guy right here and them. And then, I didn't make the charge. Oh, well, I get a 3-inch pile-in, so it's going to be fine. I think all of that's a pretty big feel bad to the general player base.
Agreed.
So
I also think
I'll miss all those skills I built up, but
Right.
it's fine.
I'm sure there'll be different. I'm hoping there'll be different skills that we can separate ourselves with.
That's the most exciting part, really.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think this also had to come into play because Overwatch doesn't exist anymore.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm just charging everybody within 12 all the time.
You would just
That's
You
a
would
good point. I hadn't thought of it.
every time to everything.
Right. I will charge everything
also-
possible. I'll charge everything possible. I'll charge everything possible.
I think this is going to be having to hit all declared charge targets. I think this is going to be a really good way to understand how to use your characters, because let's say you still come in at 9 for your typical deep strike. Okay, so you declare 9 to the screen out front. Do you declare 11 to the character that's sitting 1.5 inches behind?
No.
Who's then going to heroically intervene?
Well,
Because
no, you don't,
guaranteed
because
this.
if that screen is tight enough, you won't be able to reach him at all.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, not even
But
just
even
distance, but like if the base sizes are too close.
Which
it's
is
been spread
changing
out.
the dynamic of that entirely.
You try to wrap him so that you can take 2 of their CP.
And then, okay, this is one of the last ones, and I think this is probably one of my favorites. Is the new Lookout Sir, where characters have to be within 3 inches of a vehicle or monster or a infantry unit of 3 models or more. So no more. This squad is 25 inches away. The character is 26 inches away. They're on opposite sides of the frickin' board, and you can't shoot the character. What?
Well, that's great. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
I
Actually-
actually hate the character shenanigans that exist. I hate them.
Oh,
So get rid of all of them.
Well, as
there
I
are
learned
some-
on our rumors chat the other day, Tim Penny pointed out to me that there's definitely still some ways to cheese it with the with the way the rule is written. Like you can have
we'll have
units less than
name
2
one
models.
packet.
Yeah, so we'll see how that all plays out. It seems intent is very clear, but that needs to be fact like almost immediately. The
For
rule is
example,
unfortunately
Talon
written really vague.
Masters standing next to each other, they're each vehicle, so they trigger the character rule. So you can just have 2 Talon Masters hanging out, and then something else is just closer.
Right, but even then-
and it works the same way.
From a logistics standpoint, you've said now that you have to double the number of Talon Masters to hold a backfield objective.
Yep.
Right?
No, that's
at least
true.
it's still helping. It just doesn't feel right yet if you do it that
Yep.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We also don't see. We haven't seen how it's actually worded, probably, right?
Yeah, they gave us this the whole in-book
They
snip.
did.
Oh,
Yep.
Yep.
fair enough.
But who knows what else goes with that?
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Here's- That's totally
Right.
fair.
General
That's totally fair.
rules. This is how characters function.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. They pick monsters and vehicles, obviously, and then units of 3 or more. I hope that like some of the forgotten units, like chariots, for demons, maybe get the vehicle keyword, right? Because now like you're obviously the same size as a vehicle, like they fit the same place as a vehicle, but now they're not getting in this rule. So now our vehicles aren't blocking for our characters. It's kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Because it's
that
not a
there's-
monster and it's not a vehicle, Chuck.
Yeah, it's a chariot.
Well, that I would like them to know. I would like them to get rid of things that don't have rules.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
in
definitely some cleanup that needs to happen for a lot of different units.
For
I feel
unit
like
types,
Beasts
yeah.
felt like that the entire edition, right? Where they're just like, why can't
Oh
we?
yeah, beasts, 100%.
This is the next beast.
Yeah, like I'm looking at this and I'm like, what is the point of taking Fenrisian wolves ever again? If like with all these different rules, unless they don't get like the horde kind of thing, or like unless there's some exemption that says, oh hey, this doesn't apply to you, they just become unplayable.
Some good reason to not be infantry. I don't think that's coming.
Yeah. No, I don't either.
Have we made it through the list, Alex, or is there more?
That's the list.
All right.
So one that we touched on but didn't get too terribly into, because they haven't given us much juicy for it, is that infantry will have actions that they can take
Yep.
Oh,
instead
yeah.
of. They mentioned things like setting for covering fire and that sort of thing. I think that's a very interesting take on infantry that gives them a certain kind of role. I don't know if, because we don't have very many details, I don't know if it's worth talking about.
I think that was very mission specific. Like to
Yeah.
accomplish an objective, your infantry unit will have to not take an action, so no shooting, and you'll take the objective, kind of thing.
Yeah, similar to engineers. I've heard a lot of that part of
And it'll be in your secondaries as well.
I guess the other thing I think we missed in this whole group that stands out in my mind is that you will score objectives at the beginning of your turn.
Yep.
That is significantly different, particularly with how much we've talked about how much killy the game is.
Right.
It might be very difficult to score an objective.
And then
I
the
think that's important.
other one that we haven't talked about is after charging units have swung, it's the opponent swing gets to pick the first non-charging unit to swing.
That certainly
which
makes
is
all
a big
that
change
Slanesh
as well.
stuff way more valuable, right? The first strike.
And the foul blight spawn.
Yep.
Make him
Those
really
models went up a bracket.
That seems great.
Yep.
I think that makes perfect sense.
And it just makes it also makes the interrupt stratagem super viable and important, but not like the only way to have any real important interaction in the combat phase. At least the defending player gets to do something.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to go around and ask each of you to tell me the thing you're most excited about and the thing you're most worried about, and let's keep it relatively brief, Mitch. I mean, everybody. I mean Mitch.
Mitch.
I mean
Feel
Mitch.
attacked.
You should feel attacked. That was very much an attack. That was.
Yeah, I feel attacked.
Yeah.
Your Auspex scan is working, sir.
Alex, you did a great job running us through the list. Let's let you go first. What are you most excited about, and what are you most worried about?
Well, I'm definitely most worried about Blast, considering it seems to be so prevalent. I don't like playing 150 models, but I do like about 100.
Sure.
And I'm not super thrilled about just having to, throw away Gaunts and Acolytes and Doom Stealers. I hope they don't disappear. Maybe not Acolytes because the Deep Strike rules might get better, but I can see Kraken Gene Stealers being kind of pushed out, which are definitely a favorite of mine.
Yeah.
On the favorite side of things, I very much like the Lookout Sir rules. I like that you'll actually have to kind of be careful about where your characters sit. You'll actually have to not throw them out in the middle of nowhere and be like, yeah, they're fine, you can't shoot them because there's this grot sitting 20 miles away in a building. It's something that very much forces tactical thinking. Can I separate the screen from the character? Can I go get 2 objectives, or do I have to just say, no, I want this one objective and keep this character safe? So it's going to make a whole lot of decision making happen, and that can force wrong decisions, and that's where games are won and lost. Right. So that's what I like the best, is the Lookout Sir.
I'll just add to that I don't know how GSC plays an army that isn't a lot of models.
Yeah.
Nine Ridge Runners.
You're right. Chuck, you're up.
My favorite thing, my favorite kind of model is about the size of a Dreadnought. I find those aesthetically pleasing. It's fun to play with those kinds of models. They usually make the army small enough that it's fun to play. And I feel like what I'm hearing in this edition is it'll be those models and bigger in a lot of the cases, with a few smaller models. I'm excited for that. That plus like a smaller board. The game's going to feel brand new, and I'm always excited to try something new. So I'm pretty into that. Worrisome wise, I push it away a lot, but I am a little concerned about combat. In general, units shooting seem to do the same impact that combat does as far as killing goes, but it's harder to reach combat. And to me, being able to wrap or hold or stay there was the benefit you got that made the board control that you were getting worth it. And I'm just a little concerned that that won't be the case anymore. And one of the things I like to do is run across that table and engage. So I don't know, tentative that there should be some fixes there that help that kind of army succeed as well.
Well, and I would say that, as we've covered on the show, they've actually already made it harder for combat. Over the past 6 months, combat has become harder and harder and harder, and now I'm not seeing a lot of help from the new rule set. So yeah,
some of the terrain rules might help.
Lots of stuff might help, right?
Maybe we start 8 inches away from each other all the time. Like there's all kinds of things that could come up.
If you don't have to make a 9-inch charge out of Deep Strike, everything's different.
Yeah, right. Even if it's just 8, it's suddenly a better life.
Mitch, you're up.
Well, generally, I'm most excited just about playing again, but specifically, Chuck kind of touched on it. I'm actually really excited for Dreadnoughts to be good. I'm really excited to see that size of unit be relevant again. I have a lot of Space Wolf Dreadnoughts I love dearly, and Iron Hands Dreadnoughts that I just want to see be good and relevant all the time. So that's going to be cool. And then the thing I'm worried about the most is definitely the game being too killy. Some of the lists I'm looking at for AdMech and stuff, I'm like, man, there are armies that I know for a fact that you can just win with this. The game won't be over, but the game will be won in one turn if it goes poorly for that. And we don't have the whole rule set yet. It's not necessarily going to be the case, but that is probably my biggest concern.
Okay, Denny.
So my biggest concern and the thing I'm excited about most are the same thing, and I'm really, really excited about new terrain and the new terrain rules. So I really hope that they're good and well defined. I love the idea of abstract terrain. Like my favorite edition of Warhammer 40K was 4th edition, where you could hide behind woods and that kind of stuff, and be effectively immune to shooting and place your models very strategically. But hopefully the rules kind of reflect my hope. We'll see how that kind of translates out, because that changes entirely how the game is played. So terrain is definitely the thing I'm most excited about and the thing I'm the most worried about in this new edition.
I think that terrain can fix all of our worries, right?
Pretty much.
Everybody, the thing that everybody is worried about that they've listed, they're all fixed by really good terrain with, and then this is just a side thought. I want GW to show pictures of what the tables are supposed to look like.
Yep.
This is how much terrain you're supposed to have on a table. This is the way it's supposed to look, because I don't like going to stores that have wildly different understandings of what terrain is, because at some stores Tau wins every tournament, and at other stores Close Combat wins every tournament, and that's not great. So,
They have had some discussion around that, Colin, as far as like terrain density and what the expectations are. So I think they're keen to what you're saying already. So that's good hope.
Yeah.
I think with Mike Brandt being, kind of a lot of the event organizing side, he's a big fan of having a standard of amount of terrain. And while it might not be like an exact standardized, like always set the terrain up the same way, I think we definitely will see some sort of recommendation for the density amount.
Hope you like elves. So,
Yeah.
The thing that I'm the most worried about is what everybody else is saying is the I don't like a game that's decided in the first few turns.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I'm winning my games and it's always decided in the first few turns, that's still boring. I want to have to think for the whole thing. I want to have to plan for late game. I want all of that. That's really important to me. That's my biggest concern. The thing I'm most excited about is that I'm just someone that likes new things. The rule set can be worse than 8th edition, and I'll still be ecstatic. You can make a new Star Wars movie. It can be not a very good movie. I'm still going to go see it and love it. I want new things that are tied into the things that I love, and I love 40K. And any new rule set means I have to come up with new armies. It means I have to go back to testing. It means I've got to put weird crap on the table. It means I got to have my friends over. It means Chuck and I have to play 7 games in a day to try to figure out what we like. I love all of that more than where we've been for the past 6 months. I love all of that more than that.
It's a new puzzle to solve.
Exactly, and I'm sure Marine players felt that over the last 6 months, but I didn't play Marines, so I had about a month of playing around and seeing what was good for Eldar. But like I want to put Guard on the table against Chuck on that first weekend or whoever else is here. I want to bring the Guard out, right? I want to play with all of my stuff. I want to play with my Dark Eldar, which I never get to play with. I want to try things and see what's good. That's my favorite kind of 40K, is when we don't exactly know what's good. And that's the world we're going into again, and I'm very excited about it. And Peter said, or no, that's Tyler this time. I got Peter's name wrong last time. This time it is Tyler. And Tyler says, I just want durable armies to be a thing. Amen to that.
Mm-hmm.
Sunday morning, amen for me.
Yeah.
Necrons, please. Please,
Yes, please.
be durable.
So, I think we're going to wrap it here. I like recording this live. I don't necessarily like it being Sunday morning or Saturday morning, so we'll have to figure out how that works. I think to do this live, it has to be at the same time every other week. I think that's just the way it has to work. Okay. So I think we'll have to come up with that. We'll be talking about that as we start recording again. I like it being at the same time every week so I can plan for it, and then you guys can try to be here. That's great. So this is all work in progress. All I'm going to promise you guys right now is we're not going to go a month without recording again. That was just the state of the world plus me moving plus 9th edition. That was just the way.
Lots of life happening.
Yeah. I've been going nonstop for about 2 months now, and there's been very little break. And then I just want to say, we also
don't want to just put out stuff when we don't have anything to say.
Exactly true. And podcast listenership is way down too. Not just us, everybody. So I do want to say Happy Father's Day to everybody out there. Stepfathers, real fathers. If you're frustrated and you think parenting's hard, just remember you're a way better father than the Emperor. So, I was trying to think. I was going to ask when we came on, who's the best dad in the 40K world universe? But there's like no dads in the 40K universe. There's like people. That's not really what they talk about, right? There's the Emperor. Are there others?
Papa Nurgle?
The Hive Mind.
Yeah.
Papa Nurgle?
Papa Nurgle.
The Hive Mind's not really a dad as much as a collective.
Well, it could be.
It's an autonomous socialist collective, Danny.
Well, you've got the Primarchs are like their gene fathers of their chapters, I guess. Their fatherly figures.
Yeah. So I really appreciate you guys getting up. Some of you got up early this morning. Danny got up an extra hour early because he's in Alaska. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. It's really fun to do this live. We'll be recording. I'll be putting this up on the actual podcast stream on Monday, should anybody want to hear this over again. And we will be back to streaming in the next couple weeks. I have an internet problem to solve first, but I'm working on that now. So streaming will come back. All of my 40K is currently in storage, but I think tomorrow afternoon's project is to go bring them all home. So we're going to get back to it. All right, guys. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will talk to you all soon. Have a great day. Bye now.
See you guys later.